So we've heard a lot about the angel investment tax credit, but mostly that it was a good thing to pass, right? An R&D tax credit.
Right.
But where do you go from there? It just sounds like people were just satisfied with the angel investment tax credit, but is there more that should be done on the tax incentive side, not just reforming the old tax system?
Yes, and I don't think what you're hearing is dissatisfaction with the angel investment credit. I think everybody celebrates that. I think the dissatisfaction is that it took so long to get us there. We are so far behind other states in making those incentives available. So now the challenge is, can we move quickly and fairly and urgently to reduce some of the other taxes on the activities that really allow jobs to be created and companies to grow. So can we move quickly to reduce corporate income tax? Can we provide incentives for small businesses? Can we encourage more incentives for investment in research and development? Those kinds of things. And that's our challenge, is that when you have one side focused only on cutting spending and solving the deficit only through spending cuts, there's no room for tax reform. And on the other side, when you have candidates saying we can solve all the problems by increasing the tax on the wealthy, there's no room for reform. We need to create that room for reform by doing some spending cuts, some government reform, some tax policy, including tax increases.
Well, we heard our speaker, our keynote speaker, talk about the schizophrenic relationship. I would argue, and maybe you can agree or disagree with me, that we have a schizophrenic relationship to our view of ourselves. So on the one hand, we praise great things about our intellectual capital. On the other hand, we bash the U. And it's been a big habit of the legislature to bash the U, everything from tech transfer to preparing the workforce. So how do we reconcile this? Are we a great state, or do we have a lot of problems here? So
I think we're schizophrenic to the extent that there's a little bit of truth in both sides. I think we have a great research institution in the University of Minnesota, but we're starting to erode the greatness of that university by cutting off some of the funds, particularly for research and investment. Now, we need to hold the university accountable. We need to make sure that we're getting full value out of every dollar that we spend on higher education, but we're not going to get there by choking it to death, by forcing it into cuts that really are harmful. I think, secondly, part of the dichotomy in our feelings is that there's just a lot of political conversation that people don't trust. I mean, they see solutions coming out of state government that they know are disingenuous, that they know aren't sustainable. And so part of it is we just need leaders who are going to have honest conversations with Minnesotans and engage them in the discussion. And so again, when you hear one side saying we'll fix everything through spending cuts and the other side saying we'll fix everything through tax increases, Minnesotans understand that neither side is being honest with them. That is the mistrust, and I think that's where we get the on one hand and on the other hand, and we don't know quite what direction to pursue.
Not a whole lot was devoted to the idea of economic development, especially in the role of state in economic development. Now, Representative Thiessen had briefly touched about on Indeed. There are all these little, smaller programs. I would argue that there's not enough money in Indeed to make any sort of difference, even if you combine all those programs. So should Deed be restructured, reformed? Do we even need Deed? Or should we go all in, or should we just do everything by piecemeal like it seems like Deed has been doing?
I guess I would disagree with the contention a little bit that there's not enough money there. I think if we consolidated, if we focused, if we set priorities, Deed could have a meaningful role. But you're absolutely right in suggesting that Deed cannot be all things to all people and be effective. That is one of the areas where we need to look at each and every program, not just to tweak it, not just to say let's take a few people here or a few dollars there, but some programs have to go away. Some programs have to be eliminated. Part of it for the savings that we're going to need, the spending cuts that we're going to need, and part of it to reinvest in other areas that are producing value. But I think beyond that, we also need to look at economic development in terms of what kind of graduates are our schools producing, our K-12 schools and our higher education institutions? Are they producing the kinds of graduates who can step into some of the technology and science jobs? Are we producing the kind of research at our university that is going to lead to innovation and new companies and new jobs? And do we have a tax climate that allows the signature Minnesota companies to create their jobs here? I mean, we've allowed the political debate in Minnesota to be defined a lot around businesses fleeing the state. And there is some truth to that. But the real challenge is that the great Minnesota companies too often aren't creating their jobs in Minnesota. We need to make sure that they create their jobs in Minnesota. That's the best economic development.